Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Let South Africa Show the World How to Forgive. Now, we read the first 9 paragraphs yesterday, and we learned that Desmond Tutu is giving a speech, and he's talking to us about Nelson Mandela and what occurred when Nelson Mandela took the presidency of South Africa. He won in 1984, and everybody around the world was worried that once a black man was elected president in South Africa in 1984, that he would lead, and I think the quote was, an orgy of retribution and violence against whites, and they would go after everybody, and they would kill all the white people who were against them and who oppressed them, and he would go after his jailers and everything else. And it turns out it was exactly the opposite. We found out that when Nelson Mandela became president, he not only didn't lead a revolt against his oppressors and jailers, he actually invited his former jailer to come and be his VIP guest at his inauguration because he wanted to extend the hand of forgiveness and reconciliation. We also heard a couple of stories in yesterday's reading about a couple of different examples of people who came before the commission. Now, the commission, you had to come forward and you had to explain in order to get amnesty, which was to be forgiven for any crimes that you did, and you have no punishment of any kind. You had to completely explain what you did in detail. You would have to say what you did wrong, and you would have to apologize for it. And people actually came and they did this. We heard about Miss Savage, the woman who was maimed by a black perpetrator, and she said she forgave him and she hoped he forgives her. And then we heard about the daughter of one of the 4 African National Congress activists whose father was burned alive in a car. And she came forward and said she would like to forgive somebody. She just didn't know who to forgive because nobody had come forward yet. So we're going to pick it up from today. We are in paragraph number 10 on page 637. Now, again, your homework tonight is to give me 3 to 5 annotations dealing with our essay question for this unit, which is better, forgiveness or revenge? What has more value, virtue or vengeance? It's the same question. It's a different way of saying it. What has more value, virtue or vengeance is the same thing as saying which is a better route to go, forgiveness or revenge. Now, clearly, Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, the author of our speech, believed in forgiveness. Let's hear some more. Paragraph number 10. Again, your homework tonight is to do those 3 to 5 annotations. You can do them on any portion from any of the paragraphs, from paragraph 1 till paragraph 18. So you can use quotes from yesterday's reading. You can certainly use quotes from today's reading. So let's go. Oh, and by the way, just so you know, tomorrow's homework, you're going to do a first read guide for me. And you know what to do in a first read guide. Top left, who and what. Top right, you'll do some more annotations. The bottom left, you're going to connect it to anything in life that this reminds you of. And then the bottom right, you're going to answer some questions and you're going to give a summary of that speech. So let's go. Paragraph number 10 on page 637. Our country did not go the way of Nuremberg to bring the perpetrators of such crimes to trial. Now, we have to understand what Nuremberg is. Nuremberg was a city in southern Germany where the Nazi war criminals were tried by an international military tribunal. So what happened was, after World War II ended, and you had all those atrocities that had taken place in Germany from the Nazis, what they did to Jewish people, to gays and homosexuals, what they did to people who had disabilities or handicaps. It was unbelievably atrocious what they did to them and evil. And how did they deal with it in that country? Well, they had a military tribunal, and what that meant was they took all the people who did these things wrong, whether they were jailers or they were other generals of the army or they were prison guards or prison leaders of the concentration camps. They actually took them to trial, and they put them on trial, and they brought facts and evidence against them as much as they could, and they executed a lot of these people, or they put them in prison for the rest of their lives. South Africans went a completely different route. Rather than doing it that way, they did this Peace and Reconciliation Commission, which was a way of getting everything out. People had to come out and say what they did wrong, and rather than be punished for that, they were given amnesty. They were freed completely from any legal repercussions or financial repercussions or anything, but they had to say what they did wrong, and it had to be put on paper for eternity. Listen. Our country did not go the way of Nuremberg to bring the perpetrators of such crimes to trial. After the Second World War, the Allies had defeated the Germans and could apply so-called victor's justice. In our case, neither the apartheid government nor the liberation movements had defeated their adversary. Our country could not afford the exorbitant cost of trials, even if we could have held them and had the evidence to satisfy a court of law. So he said, nobody won or lost anything in this. It's not like nobody won. It wasn't a military battle was won. We won elections. And he also said we couldn't afford to do that. We're a poor country. It would have just deprived us of our economy, and it probably would have made things worse. Listen. Our country rejected the other extreme of a blanket amnesty, as happened in General Augusto Pinochet's Chile. Let's read about that on the bottom. Pinochet took over Chile in 1973, military coup that killed thousands of Chileans. Afterward, his government passed a law granting amnesty to the military officers responsible for the violence. So you have two different ways of going. We were given Nuremberg as an example, where they held these people completely responsible. They brought them to trial, and then they did whatever they did to them after their trial, after they were found guilty. Whereas in Chile, Pinochet, what he did was he just said, everybody's free. There's no crimes. You're all free for your crimes, and we're never going to talk about them again. And by doing that, it's almost like saying that what they did was okay because they never have to answer for it. And not even a lot of people would say that, being let free is not answering for it. But having to say what you did so that for the rest of eternity, everybody knew the evil that you did, that actually does make people have to answer for it, because now for the rest of your life, people know what you did. You can't deny it anymore. Where a lot of these Germans would deny, I never did that. They would deny it. And also the Chileans, I never did that. In South Africa, they have to admit what they did. Listen. It victimized the victims the second time around, and was really trying to let bygones be bygones, when in fact they never became bygones. What he's saying was, in this case, if you were a victim of something and then they just said, it's all good, they're not going to get in any trouble for it, we're letting them free, and they don't have to say what they did, and they don't have to ever own up to what they did, that's like a double diss to the victims. But in our system, this is Nelson Mandela speaking, we make the evildoer say what they did, so they don't get off scot-free. Listen, it victimized the victims the second time around and was really trying to let bygones be bygones, when in fact they never became bygones. Certainly General Pinochet now knows you can't act with reckless impunity and hope to get away with it forever. This is a moral universe. And what he means by that is eventually it's going to come back around and get you somehow. Our country chose a middle way of individual amnesty for truth. Someone said about justice. And we say retributive justice is not the only kind of justice. There is also restorative justice, because we believe in Ubuntu, the essence of being human, the idea that we are all caught up in a delicate network of interdependence. We say a person is a person through other persons. I need you in order to be me, and you need me in order to be you. The greatest good is communal corporate harmony, and resentment, anger, revenge are corrosive of this harmony. Okay, so here we go. This is a fantastic quote for today's notes, right? Listen to what he says. This is the beginning of paragraph number 10. The greatest good is communal corporate harmony. That means everybody working together. And resentment, anger, revenge are corrosive of this harmony. So if we want to be the best country that we can be, then we all have to be working together. And if you hate somebody, if you have resentment or anger, or you want to take out your anger on somebody, then there's no way we can move forward together as a people, because we will never work together. So he's saying the only way that we can be the best country we can be is if everybody is working together, and you can't all work together if we don't forgive each other for the things that we've done to each other in the past. So that is a very great quote, number 10. Let's continue. Paragraph number 13. The greatest good, I'm sorry, I said paragraph 10, I mean paragraph number 13. So that's a great sentence. I'm going to read it again. Paragraph 13. The greatest good is communal corporate harmony, and resentment, anger, and revenge are corrosive of this harmony. To nurse grudges and resentment is bad for your blood pressure. That is another great quote. I'm going to underline that myself. To nurse grudges and resentment is bad for your blood pressure. So he's saying that revenge is bad for you, because when you want revenge, then you're harboring that anger and it builds inside of you. And he says it's not healthy for you because it builds up your blood pressure. And when you have high blood pressure, then you have things like heart attacks, heart disease, emotional, physical, and psychic health, as well as our community as a society. Guys, gals, there's another great quote. Psychologists have now found that to forgive is good for our personal physical health, as well as our health as a community, as a society. That is not only a great quote for the annotations and for the first read guide tomorrow, but that's a back pocket quote for your essay in the future. What does it mean to be free? To be free means to not nurse resentments. And how can you do that? How about this? What's better, to forgive or to revenge? Well, clearly it's better to forgive, because consider the following quote. Psychologists now found that forgive is good for our personal, physical, and psychic health. What a great quote. Please, everybody, get down that quote. Psychologists have now found that to forgive is good for our personal, physical, psychic health, as well as the health as a community, as a society. That's the second or third sentence of paragraph 13. Let me continue. We discovered that people experienced healing through telling their stories. The process opened wounds that were festering. We cleansed them, poured ointment on them, and knew that they would heal. A young man who had been blinded by police action in his township came to tell us the story of that event. When he finished, he was asked how he felt now, and he said, "You have given me back my eyes." Now, clearly he's speaking metaphorically. He's still blind, but he said this helped him to see better. And he's not talking literally see, but he means metaphorically see. Listen, there's more. Retribution leads to a cycle of reprisal, leading to counter-reprisal, an inexorable movement, as in Rwanda. Guys, gals, 14, that first sentence for 14, solid gold. That's another back pocket one. The other one told us why forgiveness was good, right? Because it's good for our health. Now, this one is telling us why revenge is bad. Retribution leads to a cycle of reprisal. In other words, when you take out your revenge on somebody, then they're going to come take out the revenge on you, and then you're going to take it back out on them, and back and forth, and it's a never-ending cycle. Again, reminding me of Romeo and Juliet. It has to be stopped somewhere. Retribution leads to a cycle of reprisal, leading to counter-reprisal, an inexorable movement, as in Rwanda, Northern Ireland, and in the former Yugoslavia. The only thing that can break that cycle, making possible a new beginning, is forgiveness. Without forgiveness, there is no future. OMG. There is another amazing sentence. There's two of them, really. The only thing that can break that cycle, making possible a new beginning, is forgiveness. And here's the really, really, really amazing good quote. Another back pocket quote. I love back pocket quotes. Without forgiveness, there is no future. You can't move forward if you don't forgive people, because your anger is going to hold you back. You'll never be able to move forward and be the best person you can. Depravity revealed by the testimonies before the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Yes, we human beings have a remarkable capacity for evil. We have refined ways of being mean and nasty to one another. There have been genocides, Holocaust, slavery, racism, wars, oppression, and injustice. But that, mercifully, is not the whole story about us. We were exhilarated as we heard people who had suffered grievously, who by right should have been baying for the blood of their tormentors, utter words of forgiveness, reveal an extraordinary willingness to work for reconciliation, demonstrating magnanimity and nobility of spirit. Yes, wonderfully exhilarating. We have this extraordinary capacity for good. Fundamentally, we are good. We are made for love, for compassion, for caring, for sharing, for peace and reconciliation, for transcendence, for the beautiful, for the true and the good. That's another really great quote. Fundamentally, we are good. We are made for love, compassion, for caring, for sharing, for peace and reconciliation, for transcendence, for transcendence, for the beautiful, for the true and the good. So what he's saying is forgiveness is the better way to go, because that's what we need to be. Good quote. Consider the following quote. This quote clearly shows that forgiveness is better for us, because that's the way we are made, and we are happier when we are happy. When we are angry, we are not as happy. Listen, who could have imagined that South Africa would be an example of anything but the most awful ghastliness? And now we see God's sense of humor, for God has chosen this unlikely lot and set us up as some kind of paradigm, as some kind of model that just might provide the world with a viable way of dealing with post-conflict, post-repression periods. We have not been particularly virtuous, anything but. We are not particularly smart, precisely. God wants to point at us that this unlikely bunch and say to the trouble spots of the world, look at them. They had a nightmare called apartheid. It has ended. Your nightmare too will end. So he's saying we can be an example to people all over the world where they're being treated this way. And they can learn it can end. And after it ends, how do you deal with it? Do you go after everybody in a bloodbath and take out revenge and kill people? He says, oh, no, because if you do that, you're not going to end the cycle. If you don't forgive each other and everybody can't become harmonized, then the society is not going to move forward because everybody's going to hold each other back in fighting and anger. Listen. They used to have what a people regarded as an intractable problem. They are now resolving it. Nowhere in the world can people ever again claim that their problems are intractable. There is hope for all of us. And he finishes off by saying, you can't say that it can't change because we changed. And it was hard and it was awful, but we did it and we did it for the better. So if you're in a position in a world somewhere, in a country somewhere where you believe there's no end and no hope, well, look at us as an example. It can change for the better. But we need to learn to reconcile and forgive. Everybody, really nice job. So tonight's homework, again, is to give me 3 to 5 annotated quotes. I gave you so many of them. I would suggest if you have no ideas offhand, if you didn't jot down while you were listening, look at the second sentence of paragraph 13. Look at the third sentence of paragraph 13. Look at the fourth sentence through paragraph 14. Look at the first sentence of paragraph 14. Look at the last sentence of paragraph 14. Look at the second sentence of paragraph 17. So many great ideas. Have a great day. If you need any help, please email me or bother me. See you tomorrow.